welcome to the Intuitively Wild podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Levine. Living intuitively wild is about coming back home to ourselves. Here we talk about how to live connected to ourselves, others, and nature, and make a commitment to radical authenticity, vulnerability, and acceptance. On this podcast, we delve into a wide range of topics that span the human experience. We peel back the layers and talk about the things that are often not talked about. This is a space for us all to walk and wander this path of life together. Let's dig into our roots and go deep. Hello, welcome back to this week's episode of Intuitively Wild. I am so excited to introduce this episode of the podcast because I am joined by a new friend of mine. Her name is Victoria. We were connected through a mutual friend because this friend said to both of us, you guys are doing such similar work. You have such similar beliefs and intentions with the work that you do and the way you live your life. And I think you will both really get along. And she was so right. So Victoria is the founder and CEO of InYours. She helps brave souls embrace spiritual and personal growth through mentorship and transformative experiences so they can connect to their inner power and live in alignment with their authentic truth. As a result of her own personal healing and transformation journey, she's developed a unique approach to helping others on the path to self-discovery. Victoria's teachings include radical self-care, practices for energetic sovereignty, and intuitive development. As a double Leo and visionary, Victoria is here to bring magic and mystical healing to the mainstream. She offers professional and private mentorship, virtual membership program, and transformational retreat experiences. Victoria is a trained Reiki practitioner and holds a master's degree in healthcare business with more than a decade experience in corporate strategy, focusing her visions and intuitive superpowers to help people break through the mold of their outdated belief systems so that they leave their mark on the world. I think that no matter where you are in your spiritual or intuitive practices, you will find something so meaningful and resonant about this episode. And I really hope that you enjoy. Hello, and welcome back to the Intuitively Wild podcast. I'm here with a very special guest, my friend Victoria. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and I did a workshop for her membership recently around human design. So much fun. And I am so passionate about the work she's doing. There's a lot of connections around what we both do and believe in. And I'm just so happy to have her here. So I'm going to have her introduce herself and just say some opening words.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Rachel, for having me on today. It's such an honor. It's such a privilege just to be able to speak about, my truth and just about life and the intuitive nature of it all. So really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yes. So I know that you maybe wanted to start off by saying a little bit about your work and what you do and anything else.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I'll just say there's so many different things of when you say I am, it's really hard to narrow it down to what it is that I am. Other than, I would call myself an energy healer. I am also an intuitive guide. And I offer my intuitive gifts and offerings to the world through my company called InYours. And I'll tell you more about that in a bit. But ultimately, I help brave people, women and men, embrace personal and spiritual growth through intuitive mentorship and transformational experiences so that they can reconnect to their inner power and live in authentic truth with themselves. I have a really interesting and powerful journey that I've been on, just like everyone else. In the last few years, a lot has changed in my life, and I kind of moved through a big transformation process and spiritual awakening, where every single part of my life changed in some way in the last few years. And so I come from a corporate background. I have a master's in healthcare administration. I had a really wonderful and successful career in health strategy and business, while at the same time experiencing a lot of self-betrayal. Like I didn't know who I was. I didn't really understand my own needs or my emotions. I also didn't really have a direction in life, even though I thought I was on the right path. I was really flailing because what I was doing was really not my path. It was the path of, my of what society said I should do, or what my family had kind of pushed me toward, which was, this corporate kind of career. And I had a lot of perfectionism, and really crippled by perfectionism since I was a little kid, that really got me far in life, but I did not feel fulfilled. And I didn't know that until a moment in 2019 where I went through a big change in my relationship status. I went through a breakup that completely changed the trajectory of my life. And from there, I went on a self-discovery boot camp, I call it, because I did all the things all at once, and really started to connect with practices that changed my life, from meditation to journaling and energy healing and intuitive development. And I'll talk more about all of that in a bit. But that's kind of what I'm here to do. There was this like revelation that like of who I was and what my purpose was and is, and what I'm here to do, all through that self-discovery boot camp. And I'm here to share this wisdom with other people and other women and men that are on their path, that want to see the world in a new way. And yeah, I'm here to share ancient mystical tools and magic and wisdom through the intuitive work that I do. Whether you're psychic or intuitive or an empath or a visionary, it's all the same way to say, or different ways to say the same thing, which is like we work with the unseen realms. And so from there, I started a soul and heart-led business, and I'm really excited to share more about that journey and what it's all about today.
Thank you so much for sharing. And there's so much in that I could pick up on. I think it's so important to share where we've come from so that other people who are still in that place can remember that this is for everyone. Everyone has the capacity to tap into their intuition and to make a change in their life. And being intuitive and having these gifts is approachable for everyone. And when people who like you, who are so tapped into your intuition now and making an impact in such a big way in that world, you also came from a corporate background. You also had that past of not being connected. So to speak on that is really important, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm curious how you started to realize that you were tapping into your intuition more, and how that process really looked and felt like for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much there. So, I mean, I would just say, just like all of us, as children, I think that we're all very tapped in and very connected to other worlds and to ourselves in ways that as adults we're not necessarily trained or encouraged to do. And so like as a kid, as a child, I know that I was always connected to other worlds, not only because of my connection to the earth and to nature, but also as a child, I had a spirit friend that it was kind of like a funny thing in my family. Like everyone knew his name. And he came to me until I was probably like 5 or 6 years old. And I remember the last day that he came, like where he said goodbye. and I remember just being that like, okay, this is just like a normal, like childhood, like friend that nobody else can see, but this is, my buddy. So that like came through really powerfully as a child. And I've always loved mystical things. I've always collected crystals and done the Ouija boards and all the, the mystical kind of movies. That was like a big part of my childhood. My sister and I shared that deeply. And then at some point it was lost. Like I stopped listening to myself. I stopped listening to the voices within myself, but also I think it just, like many of us, looked outside of myself for the answer, looked outside of myself for power. And and so it was lost. And so, from the age of, I don't know, 5 to 7 to the age of 33, it was gone. Like I never listened to myself. I didn't know what intuition was. I didn't know what spiritual connection looked like. I grew up Jewish, culturally Jewish, not necessarily religious. So I always had that like cultural kind of connection, but never any kind of like spiritual connection to God in any way. But I also, yes, I went through like this time where I was on the path to education, to making money, to having a successful career. And I also knew at a younger age that I wanted to start a business at some point. Both of my parents were business owners. But I never knew what that was. And I followed the this trusted path down healthcare administration, and had no idea what I wanted to do, but energy healing was my calling. There was one Reiki session that I did right after this breakup that I had in 2019 that like completely changed the view of like the entire, like the rose colored glasses, like they just like took them off, and like I could see clearly after this session. And so that's where it started. And I can go deeper into like, how I started my business, but really for me, it was tapping into the energies is what turned on this remembrance of not only my intuition, but just about like of the wisdom that I have within me that I can speak to, that I can follow, that guides me at all points in my life. So yeah, for me, it was energy healing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do feel that so many people who decide to walk this spiritual path have that moment of remembrance and a moment where the glasses society gave us come off and we see the world in a whole different way. And it's so powerful. And I just have to bring up something about your human design chart really quickly. I was going to save it until later, but there are two pieces of your chart that really stood out to me right when I was looking at your chart. And they're the fact that your biggest gift, in your life theme is gate 33, which is about having inner knowledge, about going inwards and being able to process all this information that we can't see from the outside world, just feeling it through the energy, and really doing that by going off on your own and doing your own thing, and then coming back out and sharing it with the world and teaching it and connecting with people about it. And that also connects to your strongest sense being inner vision, which is the fact that you really can close your eyes and see so clearly what other people can't see. And that just really highlights your power to connect to your intuition and to this innate knowledge. And that, also shows up in you having a 2 in your profile, just like having this innate gift to know your things,
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes. Ooh,
yeah,
powerful. Thank you for that.
yeah. So definitely aligns with the work you do.
Mhm.
um, when it comes to your business, how did you get to the point where you knew you wanted to take this energy healing and this spiritual work you were doing for yourself and bring it into your business?
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, yeah, and that describes it so well. It's like when I learn something, when I see something for myself, I just want to share it. And that's really how it all started, was like with my own self, I call it the self-discovery boot camp, again, because I like was a sponge of of information and knowledge and wisdom for almost a full year, if not longer, maybe 18 months. And as I was going through this, meditation brought me into like a whole new realm. Breath work showed me almost like psychedelic experiences with breath. Also community, being around other like-minded people that believed, people that lived with intention, conscious people. That was a huge piece of it. And so when I had this Reiki session with this woman named Michelle, who is now just so dear to my heart. She was my Reiki master teacher, ended up training me. I had this session with her where everything like that I knew was blown out of the water, and like I came out like literally a different person. And from there, that's when I joined the communities. That's when I started really delving deep into like the mystical and spiritual kind of realms in my own space and community. And I, at that time, this was in early 2020, and I decided to get a business and intuition coach. I heard her on a podcast, and I was like, her, right? And I ended up working with her for almost a year, and this woman named Randy Holloway, I am forever grateful to this woman. She really helped me see just a different world. Really, I mean, the biggest teachings was like, what's going on in your head and what's going on in your heart, and where's the difference? And so I got to really understand myself, my ego, and my truth really deeply with her as my coach. I then got trained in Reiki because I was so drawn to it. I knew that this was part of my path. And from that space, I then not only began working with people one-on-one for Reiki, but I began teaching women in the professional setting how to care for themselves. It was like this, everything that I learned, I was like, it's right there. It's free. It's free. Breath, meditation, closing your eyes, being aware of yourself, like all free. Like, here, let me teach it to you. So I was the vice president of this organization called the Healthcare Businesswomen's Organization or Association in San Diego. And I started to lead 8 to 12-week programs with these women around how to self-care. It was really basics of like mindfulness, of understanding energy, like your personal energy. Also, what is your purpose and like visions for the world or for your life? And and that's where, I started really meeting other women that were in this like hamster wheel, the same hamster wheel that I was in, as a corporate professional. And I found my way out of it, and I started teaching that to others. I knew then that I could really help people, and I started working not only in groups but one-on-one with women through the energy healing work that we were doing. It turned into kind of a more longer-term coaching relationship with several women, and that's when I was like, oh, I can start a business. This is while I'm working full-time in a corporate setting. And so I decided, like, this is it. I guess I'm going to be a coach, and I called myself a coach in the beginning. I changed that to intuitive guide later on. But really starting to help people, guiding women specifically through life transitions, through career transitions. A lot of people coming to me with like, I have everything that I need, but I'm just not happy. Or I see like what I'm doing to myself. I'm keeping myself in this small, or keeping myself in this a limited way of like living. I see that. I don't know how to get myself out of that. And so that's when I started my business in later 2020, October. And I ended up sticking with my corporate healthcare job for about five or 6 months after that. And then I took a full leap and quit my full-time career that was super successful and super like stable, to completely take a plunge into like the world of energy and healing and intuition, and to go full force into my company that I named InYours. And InYours actually came to me in a dream. and it was really powerful. I've been told many, many times by spirit that like I have to keep this name, and I'm not sure why, but I'm sticking with it. But yeah, that's the work that I do, is like helping people get in your power, in your energy, in your magic, in your expansion. Those are the offerings that I have right now. But I listened to my gut the entire time. I listened to my intuition the entire time, and it guided me little crumb by crumb, step by step, to the point where I left a full-time career that I worked so hard for, to do this thing that I was so called to do by the voice in my soul that said, like, this is what you're meant to do. This is why you're here. So yeah, that's how I started my business. And really, I mean, it was around the element, all of the different elements and learnings of giving and receiving and helping heal energy. And it's turned into much more as time has gone on. But yeah, that's how it started.
Wow, it's so amazing. And I think it's so many people have these similar experiences. And I hear so many people who feel stuck and feel small and feel lost and feel exhausted, but they don't know what to do about it. And it takes us being brave and taking that leap and deciding to trust that inner voice. And what I believe, according to human design, everyone's intuition shows up in different ways, and yours is very much connected to your gut response and gut reaction. But it's so much is about trust and bravery and deciding that we want to feel good and that we want to live a big life, and being willing to step out of that box. Was it hard for you, or what challenges came up when you decided to make the transition? Because I know for some people, they feel like they have to keep their spiritual side in the closet, especially when they're in their corporate world, or they can have a lot of friends and family bring up fears and doubts. And I'm curious if anything like that came up for you.
Yeah, and I feel like it's probably still coming up for me in some way, but it's the only fear, honestly, like whatever fears were there were nothing compared to the inner drive and motivation and like the truth that I was holding within myself that said I need to get out of this space that's not aligned with who I am and who I'm becoming. It that was much greater. And so I feel like for me, there was, I mean, leaving my full-time career and like putting in my 2 weeks notice, that was like probably the hardest week that I'd ever experienced in my career thus far. It felt like there was this heavy burden that was just on my shoulders, on my head, just like I literally felt it, like holding the two parts of myself, like holding this part of me that wears a mask at work, and then this free flowing mystical being that I am. Holding those two at once was it. I could just feel it taking up way too much of my internal, I call it like an internal energetic real estate. Like the work that I was doing that was not aligned was taking up way too much, and it felt really heavy. So there was a challenge in terms of just like coming to terms with like, oh, I will not have a stable career after this. But it was like the fear was kind of trumped by my knowing and my intuition that said like, this is where you need to go. So yeah, and there was a lot of that, like even having the conversation, like starting to have conversations with people at work about my meditation practice and about my spiritual kind of practice, newfound practice. Like some people were very open to it and wanted to hear more and were really like intrigued, or they had their own stories. And some people like looked at me like I was kind of crazy. So and that was okay. That just showed me how much I was not in line, or like not surrounded by the people that like really could support me. And so I will also say I'm a double Leo, sun and moon. So courage and bravery is like I don't know, it's just like in my bones. And I've always been the first one to raise my hand and to take a risk. I've always been the first to jump off a cliff, literally like bungee jumping with friends, which I've done before, or jumping out of a plane, which I love to do. But so like that, like impetus to be first, or to stand up and be like, I will do it, or like be the leader. It's so innate in me that it wasn't scary at all. It wasn't like hard for me to do that. It was more just like, holy crap, I'm going to have to start talking about myself and who I am in a totally different way. And so like marketing myself and communicating the work that I do was like the next big step that I'm still really working through in my newfound career. But other than that, like it was kind of like, okay, it's time. Like the universe told me it was time, and I felt it, and it was time. And I dropped the career and started something totally new. But yeah, I'm not saying it's easy at all, but I'm just, it requires bravery, which I feel like I innately have.
Yeah, I've had very similar experiences where I sometimes, even with my business now, I'm like, what am I doing? I should just get a normal job, like do the normal thing. And my intuition just gets too loud, and I can't ignore it. And I think that we have to be willing for people not to understand, and we have to be willing to be uncomfortable, and we have to be willing to put ourselves out there, because otherwise it won't change, and it takes bravery. And I think that I think the brave choice looks different for everyone. Like you said, being a double Leo, like it can be that risk taking, big, loud, shiny, bright move. But for some people, it's just it's the quiet that no one sees. It's the small actions and the simple changes. And that's the brave thing for them. So I think making the changes in your life and connecting more to yourself shows up in the brave choices.
Yes, I completely agree. It looks different for everyone. And I actually just wrote an article on LinkedIn about this. Is like, we traditionally in this world celebrate, these big milestones of like getting married and having babies and promotions and retirement and all of these, really big things in life. But I think that what can be celebrated and should be applauded are those small micro daily steps, and also those like inner transformations that we feel in our lives that are not talked about, that are not like, there's no balloons or streamers to celebrate. It's like, I walked away from a toxic relationship, or I stepped into my power and stood up to somebody at work, or any of those, like just micro things that not even micro, it's huge for you. And I think that that's what should be celebrated, honestly. Our inner transformations, that we feel something and then we take action. We hear it, we feel it, we know it, and then we take action in the physical world. Like, whew, that's powerful. And the more that we do that, the more we get used to defying the odds and aligning with our truth and standing up with our, using our voices. That's where we start to create real change in the world and in our own lives. So yeah, all of that needs to be celebrated. And yeah, but not everyone's a double Leo that wants to jump off of. I've jumped off like 12 cliffs, I think, already in the last just few years. And it's scary every time. I'll just say scary every time. But I know that I am held by the universe, and I am supported by my guides, and I am supported in this physical world. And then I have everything that I need. That's what I remember, and that gets me through every big leap.
Yeah, no, I completely relate to everything you said. And I have a lot of Leo in my planet, so I can relate to some of that. And I think I think it's so important to celebrate the small things and to find joy in the small things and to be proud of ourselves for the changes that we're making that no one else can see or no one else understands why it's important for us. And not only does that make the bigger changes seem more approachable, but it also makes the everyday life seem more magical, because we're recognizing the small steps are the big steps.
Yes.
And that relates to something you were saying before about how you had to start seeing yourself in a different way and start identifying yourself in a different way. And I think something that can hold people back a lot from making changes is because they've labeled themselves as one thing and the world sees them as one thing. And we have to be able to shift our identities. So I'm wondering how that felt for you and what your experience was with shifting your whole identity, really.
Such a good question. And again, I feel like I'm still crafting like the communication around who it is I am and what it is that I'm here to do. I also know, again, astrologically, that my Chiron is in Gemini. So communication, like who basically like saying, yeah, the communication of who I am is like an Achilles heel for me. But at the same time, there was a moment I think that the biggest piece of it is for me was surrounding myself with other people that saw the world the way that I did. And people that love me regardless, even if they didn't see the world in that way, they loved me enough and they saw my energy and they saw my passion for the work that I was doing, that they just trusted and supported me. That's so huge, I think, in all of this. If we're doing this on our own, if we're like out in the world on our own, it's very, very difficult. So just surrounding yourself with community and people that love you and support you no matter what is such a huge piece of this journey. I will say that, yeah, at some point, I think I just stopped caring what other people think, just point blank, like just period. I don't really care what other people think. When I'm excited about something and I see something or I feel something, I speak it. I'm like, I wear my heart on my sleeve and I really connect with people. And so, when I speak about the work that I do, I say it with love and also complete, like, I stand in my power when I speak. To anyone, like even if it's like the guy at the bank or the grocery person or whatever. It's taken me some time to describe the work that I do, but I think that people feel it. Yeah, and I think that's really it. And just knowing that, like, I'm helping people and I know that I'm helping people and I see that and I feel it. And so just like sticking with it and being my own best advocate has been like almost like the key to switching careers and doing something like this big and like this not big, what's the word, radical, I think, compared to the life that I had before. Just trusting and knowing that, like, when I speak, like it's not even the words that I speak, it's the energy that I give. And I feel really clear and good around that when I tell people kind of what it is that I do. But yeah, it took a little bit of time. And even like my family was like, you're doing what? You're starting a business and what? Like, okay, but they love me and they trust and they support regardless, which not everyone has, so finding the people that will love and support you no matter what is, like, I think the key ingredient.
Yeah, I as a manifesting generator and someone with an open identity center in human design, which just means that I'm constantly changing identities and I constantly am learning new things about myself. And so I relate to a lot of what you're saying. I think the world seeks to understand by placing people in boxes and labeling them and simplifying things, but humans aren't simple and we aren't a label. And it can be, I also struggle marketing myself and expressing sometimes what I'm doing because it's not as simple as a one word answer. And I also agree that so much is in the energy, and people, we're all energy readers. Like one of my human design teachers always says that, because we're constantly, whether we know it or not, picking up on each other's energy. And that's how we sense how we feel about a person or what we are giving to a person. And I think if we're able to move through life more through that lens of energy versus labels and words that we've just created, it would help us all feel more free to express ourselves and live authentically in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So true.
So there's something else about your intuition, intuitive gifts that I really wanted to talk about, because in a previous conversation, you had mentioned your connection to your grandma and how she's really been a guide for you. And I would love to hear about this. One of my grandmas has passed. She passed before I was born, but I feel so connected to her. And I know my mom does as well. She's my mom's mom. And I've felt called to deepen that connection in some way, but I don't know how to go about that. So I'm just really curious about your story around that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I believe and I know that we all have spirit guides. I believe and I know that we have the support and love and the almost maybe like purpose that's been given to us by our ancestors. Um, I work with my spirit guides and ancestors every day. They are my support team on a different realm that are different realms that that guide me, that support me, that protect me. I didn't necessarily know this before. And, the first time my grandmother, my mom's mom, helped raise me. My parents were very busy business owners. So my grandmother watched us most of the time. And I loved her dearly always. And she passed away in, I think, 2006 or 7. And through this work. So like the first Reiki session that I received, again, after this breakup had happened, and it like really catapulted me like deeply into my spiritual awakening and my path. During that session, my Reiki teacher, master teacher, Michelle, she saw my grandmother in our session. My grandmother was holding my face. At the top of this table. And I didn't see it, but I had my eyes closed and I felt it. And that's when she came to me and like she showed herself to me. And it was this total awakening of like, oh my gosh, she's with me. Like my grandmother, who I've missed dearly, is with me. She became really my first ancestor or first guide to come and kind of support me. And I feel her with me always. My intuitive, I mean, we all have different intuitive gifts, but similar, I have vision and I also have sensing, clairsentience. So for me, my grandmother, actually both grandmothers, both of my grandmothers are now with me all the time. And I feel them in my body. I know when they're there. I call on them, and then they also show up when they want to, especially when I'm just needing kind of physical support and maybe guidance. There's something in my body that that senses when they're there. I feel them behind me, almost as if like there are times where I feel like I need support, and I'll call on support, and all I have to do is literally close my eyes and lean back, and I feel them holding me. And my grandmother is definitely one of those that holds me. She is, pictures of her on my altar. I'm always talking with her. I'm always journaling with her, speaking with her. And I through this whole experience, I've recognized how my ancestors and how my direct, immediate family today have been really involved in like this healing process throughout their lives, throughout my life. Like my dad is also an energy healer. It's something that he never talked about, that we didn't really know any words for, but he would heal with his hands heal myself and my mom, my family, with his hands since I was a kid. And I had no idea what he was doing, but it always helped. Always. He would take the pain out and it would go into his hands. My other grandmother, his mom, was an herbalist, and she was from the old Soviet Union, old, Ukrainian countryside, where they used the herbs from, not even herbs, like weeds and wild herbs and wild weeds, from the earth to help heal children and to help with wounds and other things. So there's herbalism and there's energy healing in my family. And my grandmother was definitely intuitive, and she's like with me right now. I feel her, so I've built this really beautiful relationship where, I will say, like, one of the areas of intuitive development and spiritual connection that I teach is that, your guides are always there, and it's up to you to ask for their guidance. It's up to you to ask them to come and help. And so sometimes I work with my grandmother in ways of like asking her to show me a sign, or most of the time it's really like just for love and support, just to know that I'm not alone. I know forever and ever until the last breath that I take that I'm not alone ever. And my other grandmother comes around when I need focus. She helps me focus. So I have very specific ways that they work with me, but overall it's just, this loving support that I know is with me. And it all started with that Reiki session where my teacher saw my grandmother like holding my face in that session.
Wow, I had chills the entire time you were talking. And I think it's a reminder that we have to be willing to believe in what we can't see and ask for support and be open to receiving it in ways that might not make sense to us. Because I know a lot of people in my life or who I've just connected with who don't quite understand the intuition as intricately or can't seem to connect to it. And I think it's their hesitancy to believe in something that isn't tangible and that might not make sense. And I think also people are looking for these spiritual connections to be big and obvious and something really sensational, and often it's really subtle, and we have to lean into it, and it grows with time, and being open to having that trust and that faith and belief.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely further confirmation for me to lean into that connection.
Yes. Yeah, and I feel like they show themselves too when, like, at the right point when you need it. But the very foundational level of it is trust and belief. That's really it. Like, it's not something rational, it's not something like the rational mind can determine if it's there or not. You just know, you feel it. Once you know, you can't not know.
And I love how you said, you'll never be alone until the day you die. And that is something I've been leaning on even more, is again connecting to these spirit guides, but also praying and believing in something greater than myself to carry me through those harder times. And I've been doing that even more so in the last few months than ever, but especially the past few weeks with everything going on. So I'm curious how you stay tuned into your intuition in times of struggle and when there's all this craziness and fear around us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is something that I was actually just talking to the women in my membership program about just a few days ago, as obviously there's so much chaos and distraction and so many things just pulling us out of ourselves in the world right now. One of the practices that I use often, if not sometimes every day, is in my meditation and my visualizations, I imagine myself unplugging from the collective energy and plugging into source energy or my soul's energy. I see it. I literally see it as a plug that's like connected to me, and pulling that out and putting it into my self and in my natural kind of like source of energy. And that helps me energetically and intentionally pull away from the noise on the outside. Physically, in this like physical world, I have very, very strong boundaries around how I intake news and how I consume news and how I consume information from the outside, especially on social media. So having boundaries around that are like essential for me. And then in times where there are challenges or difficulties or just feelings of burden or overwhelm or whatever that we all feel, that I feel often, coming back to center to me is just taking a moment in silence, taking a moment away from whatever's happening, closing my eyes, breathing, being with my body, coming back into my body. And if I need guidance in that moment, then I'll ask for guidance. If I need an output of some sort, like I feel there's a lot of stories or something going on in my head, then I journal. It's a constant, it's an every moment practice, in as many moments as possible, coming back to my center. And that could just be with one breath, could be while I'm driving in a car and just breathing myself back to, my own knowing. So my self-care and spiritual and energetic practice is really strong. And it's also something that I've cultivated now for several years. It takes every single day doing it. It takes consistency. And I will say that, like, as I've built this practice for myself, I've found that it's much easier for me to unplug or to reach into myself for truth. While when in the past I would have like gone right along with the main, the stream of collective consciousness or the fear or whatever. And but now it's like, oh, I can just take a breath and come back to me. It does take being alone. It does take, for me, especially, and maybe that's part of my human design, I just need a lot of time to be, gather my own energy. But the practice is essential. And that's really the work that I do today, is I help people discover and curate a practice that works for them, that will work for them for the rest of their lives. And it could just be this closing eyes for a moment and breath every moment, of every day, or just a few times a day. And that's what helps. That's definitely what helps me come back to center. Mm-hmm.
I agree with everything you just said. And I think it is a muscle that we need to strengthen. And it can be really challenging at first because it can be addicting to stay plugged into the external stimulation. And we have to intentionally decide to do something different than what everyone around us is doing. And we have to intentionally decide to go inwards and to find our truth and to tune out the external noise. And it's very, very challenging. It can be if you don't have that practice already in place, especially during times like this. And so I think it's really important that we all start with the simple steps, with the simple deep breaths and the time to ourselves and the journaling and sitting in nature, whatever feels approachable to each person, just starting there and letting it grow from there. But I think we need that now more than ever.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And you mentioned your human design a bit here. I would love to know how you resonate with your human design chart and how that has impacted your life, if it has at all.
Oh my gosh, so many ways. So this beautiful woman, Rachel, came to my membership I run a membership program called In Your Magic, and I bring in amazing guest experts like Rachel to speak about different healing modalities and tools and practices that, yeah, we can add to our own kind of self-care and self-discovery practice. And so human design is one of those. I learned about human design probably, about 3 years ago. I had a reading. I did a reading, and even just that 1 or 2 hour reading that I had has literally changed the way that I live and the way that I work, the way that I listen to myself, the way that I make decisions, completely. And it was just from one time doing a reading and doing a little bit of my own research, not even, I don't know all of the depths of human design reading or the charts, but just the basics, the type, the authority, the profile, all of those. I so resonate with mine. It's like insane. And it's also so crucial and like so beneficial to know this, even if I've gotten this from so many people where they're like, I'm a scientific mind, I don't believe in that stuff. But I'm like, if you read this, you would believe it because it's literally speaking to you and who you are. And so I'm a generator, which makes a lot of sense. I definitely create my own energy. I definitely have to follow what my heart tells me and what my energy and my gut kind of tells me, like what fills my energy, where I need to go. I've been stuck in many, many times, many places in my life where I was stuck doing things that drain me completely. And it drained my life force. And I felt it so many times so much so where I know now it's like, if that's a no, if it's even close to no, then it's a hell no. And it's like, get that out of my vision. Cause like, I know that I have gifts to give and energy to create and give to so many different things and different projects. I love creating. I love freshness and newness, and like creating something from scratch is like innate. It's also drives me. So I don't know if I think that's the generator part of me. The sacral authority for me is so spot on. And when I learned about this, the and like that feeling that I know that I have in my gut, ever since then, I don't think I've ever said yes to anything that didn't feel like an automatic yes. And that's changed a lot for me. I love being able to respond to yes or no questions. So that's been helpful even in my relationship with my partner, and in business as well, where it's like, okay, if there's give me an option, like present something to me. I have my virtual assistants that I work with, like give me options for things, because it's either I know or don't. And so that's been amazing. And then I learned more recently with Rachel, more about my 6-2 profile and the whole 6 piece, this 3 phases. The first phase of my life up until my 30s, early 30s, has been like trial and error and trying things and failing and getting up again, and like this that kind of energy, which has been definitely my life. And then up until this point where I'm getting to sit on the roof and I get to look at everything that I've learned and start to make sense of it. It's exactly what I'm doing right now. And it just like, it brings me so much. It's almost like a burden, like lifted off my shoulders, where I'm like, I don't have to work so hard. Like things will get better. Like that's part of who I am. That's part of why I'm here. If not better, it's like my life is amazing right now. And if it's going to get better than this, like hell yes. Like I'm all for it. Like give me what it is that I need to do. And I'm going to work that way, do the generator thing and just create as I go. So it's been yeah, beyond, I don't know. For me personally, there's a point where it's like too much information about myself is not necessarily helpful. There's something else, and I think it's my astrology chart that says like, I'm not meant to sit here and like learn about myself. Some people are, and some people really go deep into like the psyche and into the shadow and into the past and into like really making sense of their lives. I don't think that's what I'm here to do. It's really great though for just knowing myself and knowing how to make decisions and knowing how to listen to myself and where my true passion and power lies. Like that's what human design has given me. It's been huge in my journey. Yeah.
It's so cool to hear you talk about it and watch you embody it, because from our first conversation, I was so lit up by how you're living your life, because when I looked at your chart, because it's just so aligned and it just shows how connected you are to yourself. And I think you're exactly right. Not everyone's meant to go deep into themselves in that way, even though I think mainstream spirituality can ingrain that belief in us, but it's not true. And I think you tapping into the pieces that feel so powerful and resonant and applicable for you right now is exactly what you're meant to do. And yeah, it really lights me up to see how you embody it and let it unfold for you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's huge. I mean, if anybody is interested in learning even just a bit about themselves, you can do the basic level human design research and find, literally can change your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always tell everyone, just start with your strategy and authority. That's really all you need.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what is something you wish people talked about more, or that you wish you were able to talk about more?
God, there's so much here. There's so many different pieces to this that like I could yeah, there's a lot that I think that's in the collective shadow of this world, that if we all kind of faced and looked at, we could heal so many things within ourselves at the individual level, and then on obviously on the collective and like world stage. I will say that one of the things that comes often, and some of us know this, and some of us I think that are in the conscious, maybe healing spaces know this, but like on the bigger level, like world stage, like I don't know if people know this, and it's that like beneath anger, beneath hate, beneath rage, beneath war, discrimination, racism, in this world, beneath all of that is trauma. People are traumatized by their life experiences. And mental health care is, I think just now becoming more of like especially since COVID, like it's not only a norm, but also something that's like more widely accepted, although it's expensive and not a lot of people have access to really good mental health care. But I would say if we all could look at something, within ourselves, if we could see the rage and hate and discrimination and racism that causes wars, to be a reflection of what's happening within ourselves, like, whoa, everything would change. Everything in this world would change. I think that we should talk about that more. Everybody is traumatized. Everybody has trauma. Little t, big T trauma. Everybody, every single person. And the more that we see, when we hate someone or when we judge someone or when we compare, even, that's just a reflection of what's happening within us. Like the world would be a different place. There's so many other things here. And one, I will also say, this is something that I don't talk a lot about this, but it's something that I feel in my bones and feel needs to be expressed more, is that alcohol is a drug and it ruins people's lives. It ruins families. It ruins relationships. And it's so mainstream. It's so socially accepted. It's so accessible everywhere, all like every street corner. You can get alcohol, and it's so like okay in the societal kind of realms, but it is beneath a lot of the trauma and a lot of the numbing in this world. I don't know how else to say it other than I stopped drinking alcohol a few years ago, and my life is way better, way better. And I've met a lot of people recently on that journey, as well, and of ridding themselves from the hold that alcohol has on so many of us. But yeah, that's another big one. Like I feel like we all should be talking about that, because it's like right there in everyone's hands always, and it doesn't have to be. And there's so many other ways to cope and to help ourselves. Yeah, those are two big ones.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. So much I could say about both of those. To start with, I do think that if we all turned inwards, like we were talking about before, the world would be such a different place. And, the saying, I forget exactly what it is, but if you point one finger towards someone else, there's three more fingers pointing back at you. And it's not about blaming ourselves or shaming ourselves or hating ourselves. In fact, it's about deciding to go inwards and love ourselves more and understand ourselves deeper. And through that, everything shifts. And I completely agree that our world would be a totally different place if we all just chose to go inwards instead of externalizing all that we're feeling. And I do think it's trauma underneath it all, and it's pain, and it's hatred towards ourselves that we need to heal.
Yes. So well said. Mm-hmm.
And I actually believe that that connects really deeply to the other point you brought up about alcohol, because I think that instead of dealing with the trauma, so many people turn to alcohol to numb it, like you said, because it is so normalized and accepted and accessible that it's an easy solution to so many people's problems, or so it seems. But in fact, it's just masking things and pushing things deeper down. And I haven't drank in 5 years, and I don't want to villainize it. I'm not going to say that I'll never drink again, but I do think that it has to be intentional. And I think that it's rarely used intentionally. And I don't think that I do think our society has problems with alcohol. I very much agree with that.
Yeah. And not just our society. I think it's worldwide,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. What is something you used to feel ashamed of, or something that you've learned to love about yourself?
Mm. Yeah, this is, I think, something that Rachel, you and I share, is our bodies. There was, used to feel ashamed of my body, because I didn't look like, the skinny girls did in school, or like what Cosmopolitan magazine, or like all those teeny things that I used to buy. I was fed all of that as a child, like what I was supposed to look like. And so I experienced terrible insecurity growing up about my body image through my 20s. I have large breasts. I have really thick thighs. I have like wild, untamed hair. I just didn't look like what mainstream media, I think, said we should look like as, or what's popular or what's beautiful. And so it took a big, deep, long practice of self-love and self-care and embodiment to come back to loving my body, really for the first time, like probably, from that magical time of childhood until I was like 5 or 6, 7 years old, until now. It took that much time, 30 plus years of loving myself, all of it, all of the rage, all of the deep emotion that I have, all of my body's pleasures and desires. My body is a marvel. Your body is a marvel. And I thank Goddess every day for this beautiful vessel that I've been given to live this lifetime and experience what it is to be human. It's taken me definitely some time to get there, but like now I look at myself and love myself, in the mirror every day. There's more recently, I'm 37. And so I have wrinkles now. I have gray hairs now, I'm like getting older. So those are things that in the past I was like freaking out that I had, gray hairs or even anything on my face. And now it's just like, oh, like this is what I look like today. Wonderful. Like I love my wrinkles. I love my hair. I have this really curvaceous body that my partner and I love and enjoy together, and I love every part of me, light and dark. And I think that's a big part of this experience for me, has been going from shame to loving all parts of me, because none of it's bad. None of it's perfect. None of it's anything other than me, like who I am and what I was here to look like and be. So I'm just grateful every day, and for my body that breathes, that moves, that gives me life every day. I've gone a complete 180 in my experience with my body and my physical kind of health as well, which I've been on a long journey these last few years around as well. Yeah.
Yeah. As you know, as you stated, I definitely relate to a lot of that. And I unfortunately think so many people do. And again, I think it comes back to going inwards and choosing to get to know ourselves and choosing to love ourselves and see all parts of ourselves and accept all of it and just be with all of it, instead of letting the external dictate how we should view ourselves. Because who decided that getting older was bad, that getting wrinkles was bad, that gray hair was bad? Like, who made that decision? When actuality, those things are beautiful. They just are what they are. And yeah, so embodying who we are, coming back to our bodies, coming back to ourselves, and choosing to love it all.
Amen. Love that.
So I've two more questions for you. One is, living intuitively wild means living dedicated to your true, authentic self, no matter what. And we definitely went into your connection to your intuition and how important that is in your life. But what is one thing you do every day to live intuitively wild?
Oh, I love that question. Yeah, for me, it goes back to part of what we talked about with the human design, just kind of feeling it in my gut and saying no to anything that doesn't feel aligned. There's something, if I'm feeling lit up about something, I move toward it. And I think about, I don't know how else to say this other than, like, I think about myself all the time and my needs, and I prioritize myself first. And so, like, living intuitively wild to me is like being true to what it is that I need in every moment. To follow my heart, to follow my path, to if there's fear, like, I step right into it. And I know that now. It's like there's something really powerful and beautiful on the other side of this fear. And so, like, feeling my feelings and knowing my needs is something that I do every day, that, like, if I didn't do that, I would be living someone else's life, or I'd be like completely not aligned with who I am, because I feel like who I am is my feeling of my body and like the feelings that come through my body. And if I'm not listening to that, then I'm not listening to myself, and I'm not fulfilling my kind of purpose or my path. Yeah, I think connection to intuition is everything. I think it's the bridge between the physical realm that we're in to the divine guidance that we have access to. It's this like bridge between. And so it's up to me and you to listen to our intuition. And I will say, like, the last time that I didn't listen to my intuition, I know exactly when that was. And I had a massive wake up call for not listening to my intuition. And that's a whole other story that I would love to tell at some other point. But from that moment forward, like literally a day, like exactly 3 years ago in 2020, from that day forward, I haven't not listened to my intuition. I listen to it every single day. Even if it's saying something that I don't want to do, or what people around me say is the wrong decision or whatever, I go with it because I know that, and I trust it. I just trust. Yeah. So that's what my like connection to my intuition looks like. It's full on trust. I trust my guidance. And yeah, every day I listen to my own needs, my own emotions. And that kind of like is what brings me back to like my purpose and like what I'm here to do. Yeah.
So powerful. And I just have to share something because got so excited while you were talking, because in your human design, your perspective, which is the lens through which you are designed to see the world, yours is personal. So you're supposed to focus on yourself and see the world through the lens of how it will impact you. And then your motivation is what motivates you to do things and to create things. Your motivation is need. So you're motivated by what you need and what the world needs. And I feel like that really, what you just said really sums that up.
Wow. 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 Thank you. Thank you for that validation. Yeah, it makes sense. It's like the only thing that's worked for me that I've seen now listening to myself. It's the only thing that works for me. And I'm going to keep doing it. That's why it's so powerful to just know your design and live it, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious, if you were to close your eyes or tap into your intuition right now, what is one thing it's asking you to share to close up?
I think it just comes, what comes through very clearly and vividly, and something that I live by and I talk about often, is that we all have inner power. And the way that I see inner power is through a mix of our own kind of like daily movements and practices around self-care, like caring for each part of ourselves: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic. Also tapping into and knowing and trusting our intuition, because that's a big part of our inner power. And the last kind of pillar of this is really mastering our personal energy. And so in order to be able to access those parts of ourselves, in order to be able to access, and again, this inner power, it's like we each have the power to create our own lives. We each have the power to create. We have the power to give our gifts to the world, and we all have gifts. And in order to do that, like, it's kind of this, I don't know, trifecta of like caring for all parts of ourselves, tuning in and tapping in and trusting our intuition, and mastering our energy. These are all free and easy when we like get to know them and practice them on a daily basis. And that's kind of what I teach. That's what I'm here to share at this moment in time. Is that we all have the power to do these things, and also be who it is that we're meant to be, like why we've been put into these bodies at this time on this earth at this exact moment. And it all involves looking inward, being self-aware, and just being conscious of, you know, who we are and our actions that we take in the world. And I think that all of those three kind of pillars are essential to that knowing, and to that like just that knowing within ourselves. I also think that, you know, I will just say, like, magic is real. The mystical and magical and etheric realms are there for us to access. If we allow ourselves to see it, like the space to see and to feel, magic just like happens. And I've seen it so many times in my life. I've seen things that, like, it's very hard to explain, because it's like seen and felt things that are just like otherworldly. And I know this because this is what I do for a living now, but it exists. And for the people that are like really sciencey or like of this world, really grounded in the physical, that's like hard for them to believe that what they don't see is not there, or like what they can't see doesn't exist, but it does. I'll just like put it out there on this podcast, you know, like the magic and other worlds exist, other realms. And there's lots of different ways to tap in and to access that. And the first and foremost, like if you're just to start anywhere, it's starting to trust yourself, because you are magic. because you have the abilities that intuitive and innate gifts that we all have them. And with that lens of the world, we begin to see that magic exists, synchronicity happens, that we are connected not just to this physical world, but to other worlds as well. And I feel like if we live connected in that way, just phenomenal and beautiful things happen to us in our lives. Yeah. And I've experienced that, and I love to share that experience with others. Yeah.
So, amazing. I just could not agree more. And for those who don't know, my most recent tattoo that I got says "You are magic," because it's on the back of my arm, so that everyone who's behind me can have that reminder that they are magic, because it's true. We're all magic. We all have our own innate magic that we are here to share with the world. And the more we trust ourselves and tap into our gifts, we are able to do that. And Victoria, I'm just so grateful to have had you here and to share all your wisdom and your magic. So thank you so much. And please tell everyone where they can connect with you and work with you and all the things.
Amazing. It's been, wow, what a beautiful just opportunity. When you asked me to be on this podcast, it was an automatic, like, fuck yes. Sorry if I swear on your podcast. But yes, like I'm lit up and honored to be able to speak with you, of course, that feels and sees in a very similar way, but also just to share this with the world, because I think everybody needs a little bit of hope and a little bit of magic in their lives. Right. So thank you so much for having me. And yeah, you can find me at my website is inyours.co, inyours.co. My company is InYours. My Instagram handle is inyours_co. And I share a lot of really cool like magic tips and self-care tips and other ways to kind of tap into intuition and some, deeper storytelling through my newsletter and other realms. I'm also on LinkedIn. I do a lot of work there because I work with a lot of professional and corporate people that are going through kind of in midst of transition and change in their careers and in their lives. So on all three of those platforms. And I have a really amazing In Your Magic membership program where I share all of the tools, modalities, practices, live and recorded, and resources to curate your own self-care practice. And we delve deep into intuitive practices. We do a lot of energy work as well for ourselves. And I, through that membership, you get access to me through my mentorship, my one-on-one professional and personal kind of mentorship programs, as well as in-person retreats. I just led my first retreat in Colorado here just a couple weeks ago, and it was beyond words, just beyond my wildest dreams, and so much transformation and so much healing that occurred during that time. And I'm working with all of these women before and after as well, through these practices and this mentorship work that I do. So yeah, check out the website, and it'll take you to the membership In Your Magic. And I'm really excited to take that to the next level and invite more people into that world. It's kind of where I have all my creative expression and all of my kind of leadership experiences, where I get to teach and lead people through practice. And it's transformed the women that are in the membership, and I'm just so excited to share it with the world. I'm also in the here in Colorado. I live in Boulder, and the psychedelic movement is becoming widespread here. So because it is legal for personal use, and so we're using psychedelics in some of my retreats that are here in Colorado. And I'm helping my partner really begin and start his business, which is all about safety, quality, education around personal use of psychedelics and cannabis. So lots of really cool stuff happening there.
Wow, so many things. And I can really attest that Victoria is creating an amazing community, especially in her membership, and all the work you're doing. It's just
It's so needed and so special. So thank you. And thank you again so much for being here. Thank you everyone for listening, and I will see you all next week.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Intuitively Wild, the podcast. I hope it helped deepen your connection to yourself, sparked some insights, and inspired you to live intuitively wild. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would share it with others and leave a rating and review. And please reach out to me. I would love to connect with you. I will see you next time for more magic.